Well, you can't trust County.
Well, you know, I've thought about it a lot because traveling through the airport, I was like looking still at all the human trafficking stuff. And I actually did look, I think I did look at, was it Reddit, I think, which, you know, I rarely do, but that case like just freaked me out so much. And I saw one of the girls on there was saying that she was a flight attendant and like what they look out for.
Yes.
And yeah, and that really was fascinating. So I was thinking about that this weekend.
It's crazy how much of it goes on around you that you don't even know, especially in big cities too. Like you were in New York and like Los Angeles. I feel like I see stuff like that in LA all the time. And you know, it's crazy thinking back to like some of my time working in restaurants. I feel like I saw that a lot. And they say that's a telltale sign that a victim of sex trafficking, if they're out at like a dining location or something with a group of men or like a group of people, the victim typically won't be allowed to eat or eat
I thought
very
that was
much.
So weird.
It's weird. It's weird. It was really interesting to see the responses on Reddit to the Michaela Bali case, because some people were saying, I think they were kind of falling in step with you, because they were saying what it kind of sounded like was that she was being groomed or catfished by somebody who was like kind of baiting her to like go back to Regina and like maybe meet her birth father, or pretending to be her birth father, even worse. And then by the time she had gotten to a place where like it was clear nobody was coming to meet her, or she was becoming catfish, maybe she was still believing it. And when she left that trail stop restaurant, she may have run into a trucker or somebody saying like, what are you doing all alone out here? 'Cause she's a young girl. And she said something like, oh, I'm trying to get to Regina, or I'm trying to like go this direction. He says, I'm going that direction. Hop in. Like it could have been that opportunistic.
Yeah. And I know you've always said that that's really rare, but I feel like it makes sense because she, you know, had that window of like 4 hours or whatever where she could have been wandering around.
Totally. And it's always location dependent too. Like opportunistic kidnappings or killings are rare statistically, but location specific instances I think are interesting to talk about, because this technically was near a bus stop, you know, or like near a truck stop. We've seen things like that where I think abductions could be more common. I have a huge irrational fear on both sides of like going to a truck stop restroom. And I know we've been to many.
I was going to say, maybe I know where that fear comes from.
I'm just like, where could this PTSD have like stemmed from? Like, what could that be? But something about that feels very, I always imagine like a faux scenario of me like in a truck stop late at night. There's not a lot of people around. It's kind of on like a dimly lit road near woods or something. And like, you just go in to like use the bathroom for a second, but there's somebody in there in like a stall or something, just waiting to chloroform my ass.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I say name them.
Name them. I could name every single truck stop we went to that isn't great. And specifically, I'm thinking
the way stations too. The way stations.
The way stations. Oh my God. I'm specifically thinking of one that is very like similar to what you're describing. We were on some back road, and I remember the soap dispenser in the bathroom was basically just the sack of soap, like a damn Franzia slapped the back, and somebody just stapled it to the wall.
Do you have a picture of this? You should have taken a picture of this.
I legitimately do. I actually do. I'll find it for you.
Please send that to me, because that is quintessential middle of America truck rest stop. You can shower. People don't know you can shower in them too. I mean, like it's a full service experience there, because truckers, they got to stop and shower. They got to do a lot of stuff.
Of course.
I mean, it's no Delta Sky Lounge, but you make do.
Somehow I gotta get on the Delta track. I'm realizing that
you can just pay for the Sky Lounge. You don't have to be like a Delta flyer. I mean, that's a conduit. You can get into it that way, but you can just pay for a membership in the Sky Lounge.
Yeah.
You just have to make sure you're always in or near a terminal that has it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like $1,400 a year, I think. No.
Mom.
So, anywho, I can jump into this case. I will first say, welcome back, everybody, to CreepTime, the podcast. We are your hosts, Silas Dean and the lovely Miss Stu. I'm remembering this now in real time because I saw this comment literally last night, and they said it was somebody who was a new listener, and they go, 10 episodes in, and I'm just now realizing his name is Silas Dean, not Silas Dean. Like one word, Silas Dean. Because I only say Stu. Celestine. I'm Celestine, and that's Stu.
And if you say it 3 times fast in the mirror, we will appear.
Baby, it's Beetlejuice out the ass. There ain't no way around it.
Celestine.
Come on, so Winona Ryder. That's what I need.
Oh my God.
So, this case, I did not have this in our regularly scheduled arsenal. I'll be honest. Like it was not on the calendar, but genuinely maybe Sunday night, I like shot up out of bed and I was like, my gut is telling me that we have to cover this. I don't know what drove that. But I usually let my instinct kind of lead, like, what is the next case to come? I don't know what's behind that, but I decided that I think we should talk about the story of Michael Negrete, which is possibly one of the least covered cases that I think we have ever covered on this podcast. There is very little information on it, and it's not terribly old. Happened in 1999, but it just doesn't have the same kind of traction as other cases have gotten. So it's important that I thought we would talk about it, and it actually took place right in Los Angeles. I found this case strange because it is an unsolved disappearance. And I think what shocked a lot of people when they first heard the story, or like web sleuths got a hold of it and started to like look into it, is that it happened in a very narrow window, and it happened in a space that seemingly was safe. A dorm hall where this student, a freshman, disappeared one night. And there is nothing to go off of. When I get into some of the top line details in a second, I think you'll piece together like how strange this is, but I don't know that we have covered many college cases, have we?
I was just thinking
what am I missing?
I mean, the Idaho case, of course, but
yeah, of course, yeah, that's true. Maybe that was off campus too, like dormitory.
Yeah, that wasn't a dorm. Can I tell you the weirdest thing? Like, you know how we have synchronicities? Yeah. When you said Michael Negrete, I was trying to think of like what that sounded like to me. And I was like, that sounds like a damn Harry Potter character or something. And then I started picturing a dorm. Like I started picturing.
Interesting.
Weird.
It's Michael, I should clarify, Michael Negrete with an N.
Negrete. Okay.
Negrete. Yeah. I used to see some people, there was some contention about how it's pronounced because his real name is Miguel, actually, but everybody called him Michael or Mike. So some people were pronouncing his last name as Negrete, but it does not have an accent on it. So I've seen most people say Negrete.
Got it.
But we are kind of synced up in that way. You know the story before I'm even going to tell it.
And
well, maybe I should get into baby. This is anything
not.
But
yeah,
anything but. Although I will say our chief suspect does look a little bit like Voldemort, but that's something to get into in a few breaths. So the top line of this story, what makes this so mysterious? So Michael Negrete, he was an 18-year-old college student at the time of his disappearance. And on the final night that he was seen, his last moment that he was seen in or near his dorm room on the UCLA campus, there were tons of witnesses down to essentially almost the minute that Michael was last seen who can corroborate, I saw him, he walked into his dorm room, then nobody saw him again. Come morning, Michael is no longer in his bed, and all of his belongings, allegedly even down to his shoes, were left inside the room. Michael had no history of instability or social isolation whatsoever. He did not have a car, and he had no real reason to vanish from campus. Some people have been like grasping at straws, saying, well, the timing of this was December, so it would have been close to final exams. But that seems like a pretty thin argument to me, but we can get into it in a little bit for why they were suggesting of why Michael would have tried to like run out from school. There was nothing to suggest that he was struggling. But the story would become much more complex and mysterious once witnesses came forward 7 months after the investigation started, claiming they saw an older man, possibly in his mid to late 30s, roaming the dorm hallways late that night. Was this man responsible for Michael's disappearance? That is the question. But before we get into it, thank you again, everybody, for stopping by to hang out with Stu and I. We are here to hang out with you. And I have to say, I got to make this clear, because checking through all of the recent reviews, specifically on Apple, and I can't name all of them, Stu and I, we have been looking through them, and they are so sweet and endearing. I know a lot of people just say, like, love the podcast, and that is fantastic. We love that as well. But a lot of the personal messages about how the podcast has been introduced to your life, whether it's through a friend or a family member that introduced it and brought it to you, and like what it's done for you. And you talk about the things that you do in the background or in your life that, like, CreepTime, the podcast, is kind of guiding you through. I just think it's so sweet. And Stu and I have been really gushing over those lately. So we just wanted to say thank you to everybody for leaving such sweet, kind, and thoughtful reviews.
And baby, it goes both ways. They're helping us out through our moments.
That they
Seriously,
are.
We love y'all.
It's just so, I don't know. It makes me like very, maybe it's the holidays why I'm getting like gushy and whatnot, but it just makes me like feel very warm and fuzzy to think about all the creepers out there, and that every Friday we kind of get to hang out with y'all. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for continuing to spread the word about the podcast, whether you're leaving it in comments or you're using that word of mouth marketing that you know we love. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So without further ado, I was going to jump straight into the backstory. But before I do you have any questions or immediate thoughts on the top line?
Well, the last thing you just mentioned, all I can think of are some of your TikToks where you've covered those photographs of like a long hallway and there's like someone at the end or like some light on. And I just pictured this random, like, older gentleman down along my old college dorm. And I'm like, I'm gone.
Baby, when I send you the composite sketch, this is why I had to make a little Google Doc for you before. And guys, by the time this episode goes up, there's going to be an official Reddit post for this. So if you want to see all the pictures of Michael, of the alleged suspects, really, in this case, because I have a lot of theories, it's chilling. It is chilling. The man they describe seeing. Mid-30s, Caucasian, very, very fair, narrow nose, thin lips, hair pushed to a very specific side, which I thought was interesting, because the way some like men style their hair, which side they flip it to, that's specific and consistent usually. Nobody flips sides.
Mm-hmm.
So when they were originally trying to connect this composite with some potential suspects, those were the things I was looking at. I'm like, which side do they wear their hair? Because I'm a sleuth.
And you're like, what's that skincare regimen?
I know. So with that, I'm going to jump into a little bit of the backstory here. So Michael was born on March 25th, 1981 in Virginia, although I don't think he grew up in Virginia, because I've seen some conflicting research on this, because again, this case is not commonly covered. So I'm really grasping at straws here, and I tried to get the most accurate information I could. I think a lot of people were saying that he grew up in California, San Diego. So, like I said, the case is not commonly covered. There are limitations on some of the info that I was able to dig up. But from everything I pieced together on him, he was really a very normal kid. So he grew up in San Diego, we think. He had two brothers, Dave and Steve. I think they were older. And he grew up surrounded by community at his school because he was a talented young musician and he was always a part of bands. So he had a close friend group through pretty much all of middle school and high school in the 90s. He had some simple interests, like he really loved watching TV. He loved to watch The Simpsons with his friends. He was described to be obsessed with jazz music, and he was a talented trumpet player and drum player, even as a teen. And he also loved computer video games and playing against his friends, because the late 90s was a big boom for computer video games and the birth of AOL, like instant messenger, AOL, which I didn't know. I wasn't brushed up on it. But that will come into play a little bit later when we go through the night of. So like I said, he was a talented musician, and he was in a band called Island Fever, where he played the trumpet and the steel drums. So he's like a pretty well-rounded and social person from what everyone described, even from a young age, and especially by the time he heads to college at UCLA. Does that give you like a kind of a clearer sense of maybe how you can envision him and like maybe what his social circle looks like?
Well, it's funny, like to choose a band called Island Fever and he's playing the trumpet and there's steel drums. I guess it was like reggae or ska, which is like super happy-go-lucky kind of music.
Totally. Yeah. It's not like teen angst whatsoever. Like he's wearing like Hawaiian dad shirts in a lot of the pictures I see with him. Like he seems like a happy kid, but you never know. There could be something else going on under the surface because we only piece these things together with pictures. So what happens the night Michael goes missing? Let's first talk through the disappearance and then we'll talk through the investigation. So the year is 1999. Michael was attending UCLA as a freshman. He was living in the Dykstra Hall dormitory up on the 6th floor. I couldn't get the room number and I really wanted that. Now, the date of his disappearance is technically December 10th. So we just passed the anniversary 2 days ago. Mm-hmm. And rather than going out to party, they actually partied on the dorm floor that night. So I think this was a Thursday into a Friday night, which I did a little bit of digging. And even back in the 90s, this was kind of like tradition on UCLA campus that Thursday is the party night. So that it's like Friday hangover is like the joke. So somebody on the dorm floor, one of the dorm floors, they're hosting a party, but you really can't go like crazy in like a dorm room, you know what I mean? So basically they're just sipping margaritas as like 18-year-old freshmen. Did you ever go to like dorm parties?
Can relate. Yeah.
Can relate.
All I'm thinking about is, I don't know about you, I feel like everybody had their nasty freshman year drink.
Nasty is the only way to describe what you drank freshman year.
Moscato and pink
brown water. We would drink brown water. Spiked brown water.
Wait, was it a drink called brown water or just legitimately
No.
brown
It was
water?
a jungle juice that somebody didn't know how to mix and they would just throw like a bunch of random crap together. It would be like OJ, cranberry juice, Sprite, like a bunch of liquids that when you mix them, it just becomes like an opaque brown liquid. And then somebody dumps a bottle of Dubra in it and you call it a drink.
Oh my God.
You didn't have that?
I didn't have that. I definitely
had...
I'm sure there are plenty of things. Let me tell you what I think is nasty too, and then we'll get back to it. A Long Island iced tea. What the hell was I doing pounding those on a Tuesday?
Okay. But like if they're made, you know, I'm not even going to try to defend it.
That's how they get you.
And I said, let's backtrack.
It's like the Moscato. It's sweet. It goes down sweet, and then
and I like a sweet drink.
Yeah,
I like a sweet drink. I mean, people say they're like, as you get older, you're going to start appreciating a drier drink. I don't. I usually go for margaritas now, just because it's easy to get down.
And 3 a.m. Mai Tais.
That's a different story. You think I was lucid enough to taste things? Maybe anything could have gone in this mouth.
Brown. She was like,
back on track.
Brown juice.
It was basically. So I'll get back on track. They are having a dorm party on one of the floors. Michael is described to be at this party. It's just a small group of basically guys, and they're all kind of like sipping margaritas, which I think is funny. And he eventually leaves. He's not doing anything else. Like nobody described hard drug use. Obviously, they're not smoking in these dorms. And he eventually goes back to his room. Now, Michael was in his room and he was playing a computer video game against one of his friends who I think was not only on his floor, but directly across the hall from him. So they're like just in their own dorms playing this computer game against each other. They're doing this till 4 a.m, Stu. So this is like really late when he vanishes. It's super late. He plays one final time and I believe he gets beat. Like he gets beat in that final round of the game. So he runs out of his room across the way next door to his friend and he just congratulates him like, oh my God, like you crushed it. Like you killed me in that game. And his friend describes him as totally lucid, definitely not drunk, was not on any substances. Like he's totally fine. He's sober and he can converse. It's odd to think that in hindsight, this friend at 4 a.m. would technically be the last person to have ever seen Michael alive. So he says congratulations, and then his friend literally witnesses him go back into his dorm room. Shuts the door. That's it. He was reported to have been wearing blue, like a blue plaid button-down, khaki-colored shorts, and white sneakers at the time. The white sneakers are really important. So he closes his door, and what's interesting about him closing that door and going back into his dorm is that I always thought in the story that he was alone, like going back into his room alone. His roommate, like his dorm mate, was already in the room. He was just asleep because it was 4 a.m. So by 9 a.m. the next morning, when his roommate wakes up, he looks over to Michael's side of the room. Bed is empty. Michael's not in the room anywhere. Not an immediate red flag. Like maybe he just got up and he went down the hall, went to the bathroom, went to a dining hall, etc. But then he looks around the room further and he's like, all of Michael's stuff is here. Like his wallet, his keys, his dining hall pass, like all of his clothing, musical instruments, even down, here's the kicker, even down to the white shoes. Didn't take his shoes with him. So then his roommate's like, okay, well, he probably just went out into the hall or maybe ran down to the bathroom and forgot his keys. Who's going to be back in a second to like come knock on the door, right? Like, let me in. Never came back. Nobody ever hears from or sees Michael again. So that's when everybody knows something is definitely wrong. Like Michael's stuff is here. Police eventually get contacted for a report that seemed to be of Michael leaving his dorm sometime between 4 a.m. when he closed that door and, of course, 9 a.m. when the roommate woke up. We just can't explain how or why he vanished. No one could understand it. So then the investigation kicks off. Before I get into it, any just initial thoughts on the strangeness of that window, 4 a.m. to 9 a.m.? Like, what happened? Where did he go?
Oh, well, part of me was like, did he put on different shoes? Did they notice other shoes were gone? And did he
The shoes are a huge
sleepwalk?
part of contention. Well, I didn't even think about sleepwalking. That's a really interesting angle. There's no report I could find about a history of sleepwalking, but as we've seen, especially when you're like a young person going through a transitional period, aka your first semester in college,
Yeah.
it's very possible you could certainly sleepwalk, especially if you're nearing finals and going through a stressful period in your life.
Right. Or even just general anxiety. Like if he woke up, like how sometimes you drink too much and you're like,
Yeah.
oh God. And I don't know if
Totally.
maybe he couldn't go back to sleep. So he decided to like go walk around, forgot his keys. Like he could have still been a little tipsy. I know his friend said he was lucid, but I mean, however many margaritas till 4 a.m. does take a couple of hours. So I would assume to get out of your system. But
He could have had the spins or something. Maybe he felt like he was going to get sick too. Like the drunk was turning into the point where like your body's like, I think you have to throw up.
Yeah,
like, I think you
yeah.
got to go up and he just like ran out of the room and was like, can't grab keys, can't grab shoes. I got to puke kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Could totally see that. The question is like, what happened where he didn't come back and like knock on the door? Where did he go next?
Right.
Because he's gone. Totally gone.
So weird.
It's odd. The shoes, I want to talk about the shoes for a quick second because I know for anybody who does happen to know this case, I can't imagine it's a ton. The shoes are a big point of contention because he was last seen wearing those white shoes by, the friend who was across the hall. But the white shoes, I believe, are found left in the dorm. From everything that I saw, especially like the public reporting when this first came out, that was the big like smoking gun where they were like, he only had one pair of shoes, apparently. Which I guess maybe not uncommon for like college freshmen.
Yeah.
Maybe, but he left them. So everybody was like, okay, well, that clearly indicates that if he left his dorm, he was not planning to go far, like maybe just down the hall to the bathroom and then come back. Definitely not outside the dorm. But some people have said, no, maybe he did have another pair of shoes. But from the initial reporting, that was the big point they made. They're like, nope, one pair of shoes and he left them. He did not intend to leave the building, and yet he did. Why?
Weird. Or even
Very
I wonder
weird.
if he had like those little like kind of shower slippers or whatever that you have to run up.
Like shower
and-
shoes.
Yeah.
I call them flippies because I'm from the
Right.
north.
And I
Was
call
that
them
cough in response
shower
to me?
shoes.
And I call them flippies.
Flippies.
Because that's what they told us when I was in the ward. The
Name 'em.
institution. Whew. So maybe I should get into the investigation because I think some of the clues and like how police start to line up this story might frame it a little bit better for you. I'm trying to figure out when the right reveal is for these pictures. I'll save it for halfway through the investigation. I'll keep going. So here's where police start with the disappearance. We have this very tight window where something seemed to happen that compelled Michael to leave his dorm room, possibly run out of the building. We just can't really explain why. Sometime between 4 a.m. to 9 a.m., that is the in-between. What is striking to them, of course, immediately is this initial report and what is corroborated by the police report that he did not seem to take his shoes. So it suggested to them he had no intentions to leave the building and was possibly just running down to the bathroom. And yet, of course, he vanished from the building. Police could not find any indication, of course, because they sussed out all the friends, people at the party, the roommate, like everybody is, of course, thoroughly scoped out. And they're like, who are you? What's your relationship to him? Do you have any fights, any issues, problems? They couldn't find any evidence that he had any serious enemies, no evidence of a secret life, depression, serious drug or alcohol issues, nothing that could really explain like why he would have left in either scenario, whether he was taken or he left on his own. Nor was there any digital evidence that he planned to meet up with somebody that night. And of course, I know this is a time when there's no cell phones. There's email on his computer, but there was nothing they found in his email. The only other point of interest here is that AOL and Instant Messenger was a new thing. And I actually don't know very much about the records that were kept on AOL or AIM in 1999, and whether it was kind of like Snapchat where like you send a message and then it's kind of purged from the system and nobody can check it again.
I can't imagine that it's stored. Like, I'm literally racking my brain right now trying to remember when you log back in to AIM, if your messages from your previous conversation were there.
Oh, no, wait. Do you remember your AIM name? Can I know it? Oh, wait, didn't I ask you this before?
MSA 3993.
I think mine was Wild Child 17, I think. Hold on. I have his, I actually wrote down his name as well because I have his username. His was Train Fan 1, which then later, once, it had been inactive for so long that it was purged from the system and became available for somebody else to take, and they did. But that was his original name, allegedly. But again, they couldn't find any evidence on AOL that he was planning to meet up with somebody. So they questioned all the friends, everybody on the floor. Nobody had seen him since 4 a.m. That was clear. The nature of the disappearance became so strange for police, even from the jump, that they ended up upgrading the case from a missing persons case to a homicide investigation, despite no body or suspect, which is pretty unusual. I had actually... it wasn't very common for that to happen, and I hadn't heard of a case like that. Because I kept thinking about this in terms of like Aisha Degree for some reason, even though I know it's not like apples to apples, but I don't think they upgraded Aisha's case to a homicide. And she was a child. Like, she's not running out and like getting a motel somewhere, like she was abducted.
Well, and I feel like historically, county, it takes them a hot minute to ever call it.
I mean, LAPD don't have well, maybe this was campus police too. I actually don't know what the UCLA jurisdiction of policing is, but there's county police and there's campus police. Different story. Because campus police, they're going above and beyond for no reason.
That's right.
When I was in college, I saw the most insane police chase I'd ever seen over what was most likely virtually nothing. Our campus police had Mercedes as their police car. Mercedes. For what reason? I can't tell you. Did it come out of my pocket? I'm sure it did. Or my student loans?
I was going to say, it definitely came out of your tuition.
100%. But I was walking to North Campus, and I'll never forget, like, it must have been like 5 cop cars that literally came flying off the road, Stu, and onto the grass, like onto the lawn in front of the dorm. And then like they all like stopped, like jolted, and like got out of their cars screaming. I'm panicking because it was at nighttime. I'm standing in the middle of the road. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I realized they were chasing a student who was literally running into the North Campus dorm. And I'm like, what could he have done that would warrant 5 different cop cars literally ripping the grass off of the lawn outside of the dorm to chase this kid? Like, is he running from a park? Like, what could be so serious? So that's my point about why campus police have maybe too much time on their hands.
You'll get busted. I'm trying to think of something we could say about campus police.
I mean, did you get busted by campus police in college? Any parties? Nothing got broken up?
Oh, you know what? I do remember one party that I went to, but it was off campus. But
it is.
I can't remember if it was campus police or actual county police. But they showed up, and I remember this house was on a hill. Girls, including myself, we all were just flying. We were rolling down that damn hill in mini skirts. We looked like those damn cheese wheels that people roll down in like England or whatever.
No.
But I can't think of a campus.
I'm just imagining you guys literally tumbling like balls, rolling down a hill.
Yes.
But yeah, full on tumbleweeds, spiraling down a hill in the middle of the night. But like, I'm imagining clothes just flying in the air, like heels flying, skirts are ripping,
wedges,
extensions. The wedges were flying, baby.
You know, the wedges were flying, and the peplum tops and the bubble necklaces. It was all
the peplum tops. Peplum should be outlawed. It really needs to be.
If you
want to sign my petition, I'm starting one on change.org after this podcast. We got it in with the Biden administration. We're working on getting peplum out of stores and into the vaults.
And into Gilly Hicks songs.
Oh, the Gilly Hicks vault. So where do we go from here? Nature of the disappearance, so unusual, it's upgraded to a homicide investigation, and they felt pretty compelled by the circumstances here that this was really a case where something very unusual and something bad may have happened to Michael. Now, initially, police had no lead as to where Michael may have gone because they've got the no shoes, they've got no apparent witnesses, like they're running on basically nothing here. But then we get one singular witness who I think was actually outside of the dorm, if I'm remembering correctly, like was like on campus somewhere on the street. They don't know for sure, but they think they may have seen Michael at 4:35 a.m. leaving the dorm on foot, alone. I really, really want to like overemphasize that we should take this with a grain of salt because it was dark, very late. I'm assuming if it's somebody who's wandering the UCLA campus at 4:35 in the morning, they've probably had a night, you know? Mm-hmm. So they could have been a little bit impaired. And even they can't confirm that it was Michael. They just saw a guy who was like walking around at 4:35 a.m. on foot. Could have even been our suspect. Who knows? So they then bring in the bloodhounds because, of course, when you got nothing to go on, bring in the dogs. So the bloodhounds track his scent, and this is another point of contention in this case, and maybe the information got a little muddied through the years, but police are not really concrete if they can trust what the dogs picked up because his path, they do pick up his scent, but his path is like very weird, like zigzaggy, like erratic outside, going back and forth in different directions. And eventually the dogs lead them out of the dorm and to a nearby bus stop at the corner. And that's where his scent stops. Very interesting. So fascinating. But they don't know if they can trust it.
Well, I'm having trouble trusting the statement of the friend saying he was lucid at 4 a.m. Like, I think there are some people that can really hold their alcohol and like they could have just been buddy. But I mean, zigzagging walking patterns, it tracks for me that he's probably still a little intoxicated.
Can I make a follow-up statement to that?
Of course, yeah.
It tracks for me that there could have been a struggle. Like he might have been abducted. That was what I was thinking, was like a bit of like a tug of war, like possibly out of it, maybe getting chloroformed and like trying to like fight to stay conscious, like something. I just don't know why that would lead to a bus stop and like why they would get on a bus like that, unless the story is like they're getting on a bus and he's knocked out or chloroformed or something, and whoever his abductor is like, we got to get on the bus, we got to get him home, like he's completely blackout drunk, so I'm going to put him to bed in his apartment. Like you could make up any lie. But even if we're running on the alternate scenario that Michael was drunk, like you're saying, and he's walking alone, it's like, where is he going? Like allegedly he has no shoes, no keys, no wallet, no ID, nothing. And yet he's getting on a bus, somehow paying the fare and going where?
Well, here's what I was thinking is that, so, I mean, I'm going off of the campus that I remember from college that buses are free. So to get around to different dorms, it's free. Did
you have to show your student ID though? Because we did.
No, I think I just hopped right on and they just kind of assumed.
Well, it was the 90s too, so maybe it was a little more lax. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, could he, like two things I was thinking, I was like, was there somebody he wanted to see and just kind of like, show up at their door? Or secondly, could he have been like, I'm going to go get food somewhere? Like if he woke
That's
up,
what people were saying.
The spins, like.
Totally. People were saying, they're like, well, it could have been possible that he was drunk, he had the spins, or he's feeling like, oh my God, like I got to eat something. He's got nothing in his dorm. Gets on a campus bus or something to go to a 7-Eleven or a Denny's or like a 20, someplace that would be open at 4:30 in the morning. Totally makes sense to me. The question is like, was he so far gone that he got on the bus and didn't realize, oh, not only do I not have a wallet to pay for the food, I don't even have my shoes on. Like, what are you on if you're that far gone,
Or it's one more thing.
Unusual.
Like, you know how you'd go to certain restaurants on campus and they had your information?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know if that could have been a thing. If there was like a cafeteria that was 24 hours or something.
Oh, I mean, I wish maybe I should have like asked some like track down some older UCLA students who maybe graduated in that window, because they would have more information about what campus was like back in 1999. Like, what was the dining situation? But I would assume like it's Los Angeles. Like UCLA is pretty ingrained, so it's pretty easy to get kind of to any food destination. I would say, whether it's on campus or off. But then we get something very sinister to the case. So after police have started to go through their investigation, they have this weird, pattern or piece of evidence, I guess they've collected from the dogs that they can't really make sense of. They start checking all the garbage chutes on campus, the construction zones, any of like the bodies of water that would be nearby. There is not a single location on campus where they can make sense of Michael maybe stumbling, getting lost, getting hurt, and dying on December 10th. But then they get this witness statement, several witness statements, and this is probably going to be a good time to share with you the pictures. Before I send it to you, I will tell you what they saw. It is the white, mid-30s, heavy-set man that witnesses saw, thin upper lip, very narrow bridge to the nose, very fair skin. They saw him on the night of the disappearance. There are not many students who question this, because I think a lot of them assumed, when you see like a person, even in college, who's a stranger, you just assume it's a friend of a friend, or it's like somebody's dealer. Like there's some explanation for why this guy is like hanging around in the dorm hallway. Nobody goes up to you and they're like, what are you doing here? You got an ID kind of thing? Like nobody cares when you're 18. So although nobody claimed to see him directly speaking with Michael, nobody, when questioned, could actually identify the man. Like nobody was like, oh, that's my friend. Or like, oh, yeah. Like my guy was here. Like nobody knew who he was. He was just some random man in the dorms, like lurking through the halls that night. That's scary as hell. So they take the witness statements that they have and they're able to put together a police composite, which has largely been tied back to a few different suspects, which we'll get into when we discuss the theories. But many people believe that based on the nonsensical explanation of Michael's disappearance, that this man has to be involved in some way, shape, or form. We just have no motive. So let me go ahead and share with you the document. So what you're going to see here is a picture of Michael up top, 18 years old. And then you're going to see the police composite, which is right next to two of our main suspects, and I'll get into who they are in just a second. So let me send this to you in the chat. How you feeling? Do I have you spooked?
Okay, so to be clear,
Yes.
this man was only seen around campus. Like the witness statements.
No,
wait.
Inside the dorm hall.
But
The
like
dorms.
in the dorm on campus, like nobody
Yes.
said they saw him like wandering in the streets of LA as well or something like that.
No, I mean, it was so late, and I don't know if anybody would have been looking for someone unusual, because like, you just see like a random guy walking the streets of Los Angeles. That's like one among 100,000. You know?
And he sounds very like, kind of typical.
It just sounds like a random white
features.
guy.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. He's just a strange white guy. What's odd about it is like he's in his mid to upper 30s, and he's hanging around in a freshman dorm.
Baby, I need access to the Google Doc.
Baby, you know what? Who owns Google? I gotta make a call.
The Bard. Bard AI.
You need access to the Google Doc. Give me a break. Hold on. Stu has asked to be an editor of the doc. All right, let me review that and see if I'll approve it. Okay, I've granted you access. This is what happens when I don't make a Reddit post before we actually.
Okay.
Now you're in? Okay.
Okay, I'm in.
That's Michael up top. And then you'll see the sketch of the mystery man. Could you imagine a person who looks like that standing at the end of the hall?
Only in the event that I thought maybe he was a professor or something, or like a grad student, but...
Oh, here's the other thing. Oh, yeah, grad student, I was told like... grad student, I was like totally on board. I'm like, yeah, totally. Like, I would think it's an RA. Like, my RA was a grad student and he was in his 30s. So the only thing that makes it super strange is that most of the witness statements claiming of when they saw him, it was right around 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
4:30. Like, what's this guy doing lurking through an adult man, lurking through a college freshman dorm hall at 4:30 in the morning? Michael's last seen at 4. There's something here. I swear to God, there's something here.
Yeah.
I don't know what, but.
I don't know if you know this. Do you know if he lived in a co-ed dorm?
I don't actually. Aren't most dorms? Maybe this was different in 99, but I don't think we had any dorms on my campus that weren't co-ed. We had like based on floors. Like your whole floor could be guys only.
Yeah.
Which is what it sounded like, but your building was co-ed usually.
Yeah. Well, and we had floors that were like girl only or whatever, but I was just curious if it was like a co-ed floor, if the guy could have been, wandering, looking for somebody.
Baby, I went to college and I signed up for the arts learning community where co-ed was the norm. Co-ed roommates was the norm.
I love living on a co-ed floor. I thought it was so fun.
It's so fun. Yeah, because it's all your friends too from like class, and like if you're in like an arts learning community, it's everybody who's like in or adjacent to your major. But this is a different situation, and something about this screams like, I don't know, this guy's involved. I just can't shake that feeling. But we don't have a motive. Like what? How do we explain that? Is it opportunistic? Was he a stalker?
That's
what is it?
I was thinking. I was like, is there a stalker situation going on here?
No evidence of it, at least on his computer. Like nothing just like suggests that he had any knowledge that he was being targeted.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just trying to think, like there are sometimes the thing that I keep trying to remind myself of, so I'm not just relating it back to my college experience, is that you are in a metropolitan city. Like people can get through the, campus, and he could have been stalked by someone that was just, not supposed to be on the UCLA campus.
Absolutely. That's the thing. I think it's a little misleading for a lot of people who are listening, and even for myself when I was reading this, because of course, like you only relate it back to the imagery that you have. And my college campus was in a rural location. So of course, when I think dorms and like somebody leaving a dorm, I think, oh, well, they're going out to like the street and nobody's around. I've been to the UCLA campus. It's very densely populated. Like, I would be shocked to hear that there wasn't somebody around, you know, and it's also intermixed with a lot of like local businesses. Like, I go there sometimes to drop off like packages I have to ship. I'm the oldest person there, but I go there.
Where is the UCLA campus in LA?
It's closer to the west side. Please, no Angelinos crucify me on like my location knowledge. I don't go to the campus very often for obvious reasons, but it's closer to, I'm trying to think of a landmark that it's near. If you're headed towards the west side of LA, it's closer to that direction, unless they have multiple campuses, and maybe I'm confused, but I think it's at the cross street of Sunset. Like, it goes along Sunset, like that's the major connecting street next to this dorm hall, at least.
Yeah. Because I was just trying to think, you know, there's certain campuses in a metropolitan area where they're a little bit further removed, like they're more neighborhoody. And then there's some, like I'm thinking specifically in DC, it's like Georgetown is in Georgetown, which is like its own little cute neck of the woods. But then GW is right in the center of, you know, all the major businesses downtown, hustle and bustle. Like anybody is wandering through it at any given moment. So I was just curious.
I think USC is a little closer to like maybe what our college experience looked like in terms of like, I don't know, like outside dorm geography. Like, there's much more space where USC is for sure. And like, it looks more traditionally college, whereas UCLA is a little more modern and metropolitan. It feels closer to like an NYU in that way.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so hopefully that gives more context as to your theory about like, this could have been anybody who just like waited for somebody to like, I don't know, leave the door open and just grabbed it, just went inside, which is horrifying. That's so horrifying. So, like I said, we've got no motive, and eventually the family, they became so desperate, they end up employing 2 private detectives to chase after this case. They put up $100,000 for anybody who has any information, but the information never came. That is the craziest thing about it, is that through the years, I think there's something like 500 plus tips that come in regarding this case and the night Michael vanished. Nobody has ever officially said, I've seen him, or like, I know where he is. He's just gone. Like, none of his credit cards were ever used. His bank funds have never been touched. So he wasn't like really abducted for ransom or like money. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like somebody abducted him or like took him out at gunpoint and they were like, drain your bank account. We're going to go to an ATM. They really just wanted him.
That's
which I'm trying to make
so
sense
eerie
of.
And just gross.
Yeah. But whatever really happened to him and this mystery man, whether he's involved or not, or this is just a fluke in the case, that is for us to discuss with the theories, which we have arrived at. Before I jump in, any like last thoughts, or like, where are you leaning right off the bat?
I'm thinking that this was a stalker sort of situation, but there was
or a predator, maybe like just somebody who was
somebody that had seen Michael, and or not even seen Michael really, because it's like, how would you know he's going to stumble out of the dorm at 4 a.m? But somebody that was lurking, waiting for anybody, almost like any young
that's what
child.
I was thinking too.
To me, that's a child still. You're 18, but
it's
in the eyes
I will
of a predator.
agree with you. I will totally agree with you. It feels super specific that this is like a freshman dorm. So it's all guys who were like 18. And it also kind of hits something in me where I'm like, that feels right. Where it was opportunistic in the way that this was somebody who wanted to abduct someone, maybe not necessarily Michael, but Michael just happened to be the unlucky one who was out and about, out of his dorm, maybe running to the bathroom at 4:30 in the morning. And then, for all we know, this mystery man could have been waiting in the bathroom for somebody, just waiting for one of the guys to walk in. He's hiding in a stall. Michael goes to like a urinal or something. Somebody comes up behind him with a rag of chloroform, knocks the kid out, drags him out silently from the dorm. I think I just downloaded that. I just plucked that from history. Something in my mind.
And it's almost weird because it's like that. I'm also coming back to that zigzag pattern if we're going with what you're kind of suggesting, like where he gets him out of the dorm and like is
dragging him. Yes.
And then they get to the bus and the driver's like, whoa, dude, like what's going on? And he could have totally posed as an RA or a professor and been like, got to get this kid back to whatever dorm or whatever area. Can you drop us off?
Could have even said something like, yeah, I'm like taking him to the infirmary or something. You know what I mean? Like, can you step on it kind of thing? Like,
oh, God.
Anything he could have done to like smooth talk that. And I will also say that Michael's not very big. He's a pretty thin guy and he's only about 5'8". So I don't think it's wild to imagine that he was physically overpowered and physically dragged or even carried once knocked out to this destination. Getting him on the bus is the craziest thing, but it's totally not off the table. The only thing is that, of course, I would assume police did their due diligence to talk to the bus drivers. Yeah. But it's entirely possible the bus stop was just a landmark where maybe it's a 2-person operation. This guy goes in, gets the kid, takes him to the bus stop, driver pulls up, throw him in the car. They both get in the car. I could totally see that. We are running through theory. I haven't even started the theories and we're already
I know. You know, I have one more thing to say, but I'm going to zip my mouth. Actually,
are you sure?
Because I actually, I think I debunked it already in my head. So.
Well, okay, so let's go in a little bit more, and I am going to get into some of the additional details I was able to dig up that I think might color this a little bit more about like who the suspects might have been, who those men in the pictures are that I sent you. And again, for anybody who wants to see these photos, I'm going to have everything up. Stu and I will make a joint Reddit post so you can follow along and see the pictures as well. So our theories. Michael may have left the dorm room and, of course, was abducted by a man who was stalking him, either premeditated or opportunistic. We kind of just ran through what that scenario looks like. I think the most logical, if we are to believe that Michael did not take his shoes, is that he probably did not anticipate leaving the building, which would suggest he was abducted from inside the building. And it wasn't like he's running out to go grab food and like there's a guy waiting outside. I really, really feel like something went down in like the dorm floor bathroom and he was like knocked out. Something about it. I mean,
I'm going with your gut on this because I think also having lived, as like a 18-year-old guy in a dorm, that that if some guy had walked in and you were, saw him in the hallway, you'd be like, who the hell is that?
Yeah. It's somebody who's hiding, lurking around a corner or lurking in a stall. And it's when your guard is down because he's been drinking. It's 4:30 in the morning. Like he's tired and like he's not expecting anybody to be up and in the bathroom. So of course it makes total sense that like kid is at the urinal, gets chloroformed by somebody who like jumps out from a stall. I can totally see it. But I think what throws a wrench in this theory maybe was like what people were saying, the bloodhounds, the leading to like the bus stop. And we don't know if that's to be believed. And that's at around, like what, 4:30, 4:35. And we're backing it up with this like witness statement of when the mystery man was seen. What throws another wrench in that is that we have this other person who was out and about on the street who claimed they may have seen Michael and that he was alone at around 4:35. It depends like which version of the story we want to put weight into. I'm willing to lean on the side of the mystery man being more integral to the story than this random UCLA bystander witness who was like, yeah, I might have seen a guy. I might have not.
The only thing that I'm wondering is, wouldn't the bloodhounds have picked up on someone else's scent with his?
Not if they don't have a reference.
Oh, that's right.
Because I think that's what they give them. They give them like a piece of clothing or something. So I mean, in theory, they could like pick up every scent. But they were following Michael and Michael only. And it was like super zigzaggy. So they thought the dogs were getting confused. They're like, the dogs don't seem to be following like a logical foot pattern. So we have to assume that the dogs are at fault. The dogs are never at fault.
Mm-mm.
The dogs know. They know.
Not a bloodhound, baby.
Not a bloodhound, baby. I do have some additional information about the potential connections to this abduction that I wrote in my phone because I was doing more research on this today. So one other thing I was able to dig up, which I did not see in the initial police reports, but the witnesses who did see this mystery man on the floor, they said he was wearing a shiny gray jacket with a turquoise emblem.
Okay.
Does that read? Okay, so that kind of read as like maybe like a little like flamboyant to me, but
Well,
maybe not.
I'm thinking like an 80s windbreaker or like a 90s windbreaker. You know how they were made out of like, those are very in trend.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But
what is what is the
pretty...
blue emblem? Is that like a common? Let me look this up and just see if I can Google something. Hold on. 1999. Gray. Also a shiny jacket, like silver.
But you know what I'm talking, like that kind of like reflective material of like windbreakers that were really popular in like the 80s and 90s.
I think I have a visual. I think I've got a visual. It just seemed, it's something about it read as like very, in my mind, I'm seeing it as like a very clear silver, which to me read as like somebody who wants, like that's not somebody who's about to abduct somebody necessarily.
Right.
Because like it's an outfit that evokes attention, maybe, or just like catches the eyes. So I'm thinking, I'm like, so this is either somebody who was not involved, maybe, or it's somebody who doesn't care if they have attention, kind of like a Lucas Magnotta type who wants people to know what they're about to do in a way, or like wants to leave a visual impression on the witnesses. Maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't, and I'm just looking too far into it, but I just thought that detail about the silver jacket with the turquoise emblem was interesting.
Yeah.
There is, let me see. So there's a couple of connections here, which if you go back to the Google Doc that I sent you, I'm going to talk you through the two pictures that you're going to see. So if you're looking at it under the picture of Michael, you see the picture of the first man on the left, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this man is Damon Van Dam, who was actually a close family friend of the Negrete family. Now, the existing information on Damon Van Dam's relationship to the family, it's a little muddy, but from what I could piece together, this man was allegedly a family friend who was close with Michael's father. And there are further reports online, although unconfirmed, I will say this, that Michael and Damon played online video games together. And they may have been communicating through a system like that where you could send a message back to somebody, even if it was like a small message, simple. Mm-hmm. But that may have been a way that they were communicating without technically leaving like a digital trail, like a paper trail, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Damon has never been officially charged with anything in connection to this. The only thing is that, of course, he had a connection to Michael. Michael is a gamer. He was gaming that night. It could have given him confirmation from the outside. Oh, I know he's in his dorm because he's online. He's playing this game. So I know exactly where to find him. It's just unclear as to like what the motive would be there to capture Michael. I'm sure like you could extrapolate like tons of things from that and say like maybe it's to get back at the father. Maybe there's something we don't know. Maybe him and Michael had like a secret relationship. There's lots of stories you can spin that into. But I think it's a little unlikely because if this was someone that Michael knew, and this was also a man who was lurking through the halls that night and witnesses saw him, wouldn't he run the risk of Michael seeing him and then lose the element of surprise if he was going to abduct him?
Right.
That's what I was thinking.
I think I would think the same thing.
It's a little bit of, I can see why people are making the connection, and I can even concede that like he looks a little bit like the sketch, to be honest, but I think the through line might be a little weak on this one. I was much more compelled by the second picture that I sent you. If you scroll down to the last.
When I scrolled down beforehand,
I know.
My stomach turned.
That guy's a bad guy. Let me just preface with that. He's a bad dude. So this second person, I actually don't think this information came out about him until the 2010s. He is a potential suspect in this. And I think this reporting actually came from BuzzFeed Investigates. Like I think BuzzFeed did the investigative journalism on this, allegedly. It is sourced back to this man named Mark Collins Rector. He is not explicitly connected to Michael or Michael's disappearance. And I believe, I think he's 54 years old, or he was 54 at the time that like all of this information came out, but he is a registered sex offender as far as I know. And he was living in the Los Angeles area. And I believe the allegations connect him to a larger sex trafficking ring for the Hollywood elite that specifically, get this, specifically seeks out very young men and boys. So the way he's described in these allegations, oh my, are you okay?
Yeah. Well, I was like, that makes me want to vomit. And then I was like, I felt myself.
I didn't have you up on the screen and I was like, she was choking to death. She's choking. So this guy, the way he's described in these allegations is that he is basically like the muscle or like a liaison to like the Hollywood elite, although he allegedly had like sex trafficking parties as well, where like a lot of the men in this ring would like come to his home, which I think is in Hollywood. And the victims of the trafficking were there, but it's all young men and boys. So a lot of people are suggesting he very well could have been like, it could have been that exact scenario where like he's coming to a freshman dorm prepared, possibly with chloroform that night, because he is running an operation where he's going to abduct one of the 18-year-old guys and take him and capture him to the ring.
That is absolutely foul. The sheer balls he had to have to go in like multiple times on that floor and run that risk, and just like to have I guess I'm sure it was, arrogant enough to think, oh, I can get myself out of this. Like if somebody sees me or whatever, I'll pretend I'm a professor. I'm
I mean, he probably would have been young enough at 1999. Let me think. So if he was 54 at the time when this story broke, and again, I have to say this because I believe the case was eventually, one of the cases against him was eventually dismissed for lack of evidence. So this has to be, we have to say this is an allegation. Allegedly, this is all true. But he was 54 at around the time when this story broke, which might have been around 2017. Which would have made him pretty young, right? In 1999. Like he would have been like right around this age, like 30s.
Mm-hmm.
So he feasibly could have easily said to anybody, I'm an RA, I'm a grad student, this kid's knocked out, he's drunk, I got to take him to like the infirmary, the hospital, or like I got to take him to X location. And I hate to say it, but like the time period is on his side in terms of getting away with it. No cell phones, no immediate communication. No cameras.
That's what I kept thinking. I was like, where were the damn cameras? And then that's when I said I debunked my own thing, because I was like, it was the 80s, 90s. I'm sure they barely had cameras set up on campus.
So this was another thing, because apparently when police initially did their investigation, they saw some cameras outside of the dorm and they were like, boom, we got it. We've got cameras. We've got the story. They were dummy cameras. Cameras that were put up for like faux security purposes to like deter people from trying to like cause a ruckus or break in. Like you're on camera, but they're not recorded. They're not even hooked up to anything. They're not recording anything. They were for nothing. So what's crazy is like this guy either ran that risk and did not realize there were cameras there and just like ran the risk and was like, I mean, what happens, or he knew that. He had the inside information that those cameras are bull. Those cameras don't record anything. I really think this sketch and this picture of this man, something aligns there for me. And I will circle back to what I said before. The way he runs his hair to the opposite side. Look at the picture. It is the same thing as the sketch.
Yeah. Also something about the lips.
The lips. Yes. Because like they're technically thin, but
they're big,
full, and like full, and like a big mouth. I just kept trying to think. I'm like, okay, if I saw that man, and again, like this picture of him, this is him in like 2017. So
right,
it looks like he might have had some work done on his nose too. Like I really can't tell if he may have had some work done. So maybe his face looked a little bit different. But try to imagine him like 20 years prior, 1999, basically. He may have looked much closer to this picture.
Okay. Also, the ears and the wider neck. Like, I mean, this definitely is one of the closer sketches for me, even though when I first looked at it, I was like, okay, guy in the first picture, like, sort of, like, I think maybe also is because he was the first one I saw. I was like, okay, that I can see how that would look kind of
I think
similar.
It's the nose, too. It's the nose looks really similar.
Right. But this, if I'm thinking about that guy back in that time period and someone trying to describe him, he's got some pretty predominant features that I think like pretty much align with that sketch.
What I'm also noticing about it now, looking at it, is they intentionally, I know it's a black and white sketch, but they very clearly intentionally drew this sketch to be of a blondish man because the hair on top, it's not balding, it's light. They're drawing light hair or trying to depict light hair. This picture of him, although his hair is a little bit darker in his mugshot, he has basically like fully blonde eyebrows, which tells me that when he was younger, he probably was naturally blonde. Yeah. Are you done? What's going on? Are you
no, baby, I'm good. Yeah, I got your cough. Attack. I got your cough. We transferred it.
Oh no.
It's That's just what happens with podcasts. End of the year, baby. I know.
I know. Oh, poor thing. I'm sorry.
Well, I am doing worse now that I've seen his face. No, I'm just kidding. This is distracting me. Now I can do her voice.
Maybe I should. Let's see if I have another theory here, because to me this is the most compelling, obviously. But there are some other people here who want to lean into that witness statement that say, somebody says they saw Michael alone. So is there an avenue here where Michael left on his own? Now, we can preface this theory by saying we don't know for sure that Michael left without shoes. Of course, it's very odd that he left without his keys to get back in. Could have been an oversight. Definitely left without his credit card, like no money. His bank wasn't used at all. So that tells me he either completely forgot about it or he had the intentions to go meet up with somebody under the pretense that they'll pay for me. They got it. So this gave way to a new theory because we've already talked through the scenario of Michael was hungry. He was trying to go out to like a 24/7 place or something. There is a pretty well-discussed theory that Michael may have been experimenting and he may have had a secret lover and things turned south. Some have suggested that the mysterious older man who might have been hanging around the college dorms may not have been this initial suspect who was involved in the trafficking ring, or could have been, but might have been somebody who Michael had met online and they were planning to meet up late that night. It was college. A lot of people explore their sexualities. And of course, this is before the age of cell phones. Not everyone even has email. Not everybody even had a personal computer. So it is entirely possible that it could have been an LA local that he met. It could have been a grad student. Maybe it was actually an older student. I keep feeling, okay, I just have to pause for a second because you've got me messed up because you told me you keep seeing scary things behind me, like this place is haunted or something. I swear to God, for the last...
You just felt something weird.
It's been happening. I've been ignoring it for the last 20 minutes. I keep feeling an intense draft of wind on my face, Stu. I have no windows open. I have no fans on. What? I don't know what is happening, but like...
How close do you live to the UCLA campus?
Please stop. Please stop. Stop.
I'm like, is that a damn ghost?
This will sound insane, but it feels like somebody is like blowing on me. I know I sound insane right now, but
no, you don't.
I'm really
do you know what's weird? I feel like normally you are very like, I mean, listen, you were banging through this research, but when you said your gut felt something like really deep, I just know how your gut operates. And I'm like, I'm there. I'm like, I'm not shocked that you are feeling that because this case is hitting different. It's weird.
It's weird. There's something, I don't know if it's because I live in LA that like something about it feels a little too close and weird, but yeah, I just like couldn't ignore it because this sensation has been very strange for the last 20 minutes. It's like someone, I swear to God, like an invisible person is next to me going, that's what it feels like. I promise you, it's got, you know what, there's a logical explanation. It's got to be a draft or something that's traveling, but it's very consistently hitting me, but I'll keep going.
I should have never planted this seed.
Maybe, I wonder, maybe I do pay attention. I know you should not have planted that because I'm going to be thinking about it all night, but maybe I need to listen to the signs. Maybe something is trying to tell me something. So I'll keep going on the secret lover scenario here. So like I said, college, freshman, 18 years old, could have been experimenting with his sexuality. This would make maybe a lot of sense as to why Michael maybe snuck out at 4:30 in the morning. It's a time when he knows everybody's going to be asleep. His roommate is certainly asleep, and he can't do anything back in his dorm room if he wants to keep this kind of discreet. So is there a scenario where Michael is going on a secret hookup and then he is the victim of something that turned lethal? Or maybe even it's more like our theories around, oh God, the Joshua Maddox case, where like that was like a secret, like, you know, love affair, and they were doing drugs together, accidental OD maybe. And then this guy, maybe he's an older man, maybe he has a family. He lives in Los Angeles. He's got money or something, and he's terrified because it's going to out him publicly. How do I explain this to the police? How do I explain it to my wife? And he does the unthinkable, and he makes Michael disappear. Gets rid of the body. It's just a theory. And like I said, I will say again, there is no public-facing evidence of any pursuits of an affair like this that were found on his computer, nothing that could link him necessarily to being curious about his sexuality, but he was 18. It seemed like he knew his way around a computer, especially if it was a computer without a password. Maybe he was clearing his browser history. Maybe they were meeting or chatting through AOL and the messages were pretty much lost. I couldn't really figure out, like I said before, like how much of that data back in 1999 could be preserved and like basically like extrapolated from a computer once it goes to evidence.
That's what's really chilling me right now about this case is that I know we've said on other cases, you know, the person sort of vanishes out of thin air, but I mean, there's like no signs here of something being wrong leading up to it, except for him being, you know, like quite possibly heavily intoxicated, wrong place, wrong time, like those kind of scenarios. But typically with a predator or like a random stranger, you kind of have to put yourself in the line of fire. Like, but there's a buildup to it normally. And this feels like it would have been like we would have had some little crumb of there being like a conversation previously.
Something left behind.
Yeah.
Like, unless he was just really good at covering his tracks or unless we're totally off the mark. And it really was that he was sought out by somebody who was looking to traffic him, which is not off the table at 1999 in Hollywood. Very risky.
That's where
scene.
I'm sort of leaning at the moment.
I will also say, because I did have this other piece, let me pull this up on my phone. This other piece of evidence. Again, the information on this, because this case is so insanely underreported. Like the lack of information about this story, like I will be shocked if there are any creepers who listen to this who are like, I knew that case, because there's barely any YouTube videos on it. Like nobody covers it or talks about it. But apparently there was a Tumblr, because of course, once he went missing, I think his band, they started like making, you know, they were doing fundraisers to try to raise money, like help us find Michael. His parents were doing everything they could. One of his brothers, I think it was Steve, ended up making a blog, but it was a Tumblr, where he would talk about the case. And basically he used it as kind of a blog to like vent about his personal grievances with some of the contributing factors that he think went into Michael's disappearance. He says that what has been underreported is that at the time, Michael was a freshman and he was really starting to experiment with harder drugs and he was going to raves. His brother thinks that at the time, Michael was experimenting with ecstasy, and it could have been a scenario, so says his brother, where Michael planned to like meet his dealer outside the dorm at like 4:30 a.m. when like, I don't know, police wouldn't be around, like LAPD wouldn't be like scoping the streets. Met the dealer. Something went wrong with the drug dealer. Drug dealer made him disappear. Which feels like a scenario that could have some weight. But again, I think we also overestimate the capacity of like college level drug dealers. Like they don't necessarily want to deal with a body, you know, like not all of them are looking to kill people, especially over some pills of E. It's not that serious. Like we're not talking about moving coke. Like it's ecstasy.
Like, totally. And the other thing I keep thinking is that if Michael's past sort of indicated that he was, if we kind of table this idea that his brother is saying he was starting with harder drugs just for a second, that he was sort of like a happy-go-lucky person and nothing was seemingly wrong, that would strike me as a type of person that like once the party is over, they're like, okay, I'm done. It's 4:00 in the morning. I'm going to sleep. They're not like staying up to like keep the party going alone, which like there are definitely college kids like that, but they normally, their friends and family are going to be like, they had they had a desire to party a lot. They got into trouble. Like it just, I feel like that would also be a pretty rare instance here that he wanted to like, but maybe I'm wrong. According to the brother, there could have been something else, but
something about it doesn't like hit me in the same way as the trafficking thing. And I don't know why. I don't know what that is. It has to be like, to me, I guess it's the mystery man and that connection to, what is his name again? I already forgot his name. The sex trafficking guy. Why did I forget his name? Shoot. Mark, I think it's Mark.
I kept thinking Michael Shannon. I don't know why.
It's not Michael Shannon.
I know. I'm like, his picture's sort of, which I love Michael Shannon, so I shouldn't say that the actor, but looks a little he could be cast in the movie version.
Absolutely. Or played by Molly Shannon even.
Right.
She's versatile.
If she
I did see her once in person. Did I tell you that? Remember?
Wait, maybe you did. Maybe you did. Where did you see her?
It was in, I'll blow it up because it's my favorite vintage shop. I go to a vintage shop called the Bearded Beagle. It's my favorite vintage shop. It's in Silver Lake. And I've been there a million times. This one time I went there, Molly Shannon walked in and I swear to God, the whole room stopped.
Stop.
I'd never felt like energy like that where the entire room knew who she was. And like, it's all like Silver Lake, like hipster types. Like everybody was dying. And then I hid behind a rack of clothes because I was so scared. I was shaking. I'm not kidding. And she like picked up on it and realized, because she was buying so much stuff, just like picking stuff off the walls. And she turned around to like look at everybody because obviously the room was like silent and heavy as hell watching her. And she looked at me. And my face was, I looked psychotic. I looked like I could have killed somebody.
How many years ago is this?
Maybe like 2.
You know what? I don't care about getting starstruck. I think it's what makes life fun. I think to be, you know, like too nonchalant.
It's the magic.
It's like, holy crap. Like in all my years in New York, every time I saw somebody famous, even like, I remember Joy Behar walking past me, the host of The View. I almost fell to the damn ground.
Baby, when I was waiting tables and I thought she was in our restaurant, I went to the back. I hid in the freezer because I was having a panic attack because I'm that big of a fan of The View.
And that's our toxic trait that we share.
That our deeply toxic trait. So to pivot back away from Joy Behar, I don't know how. Only us could go from a disappearance, potential sex trafficking to Joy Behar. So that's really where we're left. I suppose like there's only the scenario of the sex trafficking abduction. I definitely see a scenario of like a struggle. If I do believe he was abducted or, you know, his body was taken either by a drug dealer where things went wrong or a sex trafficker where things went wrong, the zigzag pattern outside to me, although there's no evidence of blood or like ripped up grass or anything from what I saw, zigzag reads as like a little bit of a struggle or difficulty moving a body late at night to get it from point A to point B. Some people have said secret lover, maybe OD'd, maybe like he was going to out him or something went wrong in that way. Possible. I just wish I had more evidence to go off of that. And then there are some people who say, what if Michael was pulling like a full Mara Murray and was just trying to like head out in the middle of the night, just run out of town?
that one for me still doesn't. It just doesn't fit because he had such a great night.
Well, I mean, we weren't there, shockingly, but sight unseen. But a lot of people have said, well, you have to put it in the context of the timing of the school year, because this is December. So like we said, finals are coming up. It's a stressful period. It's his first semester in college, which we have seen so many times with like Bryce Pisa or people who like start to slip a little bit maybe, or like they might be having some mental health issues, especially if they start playing around with some harder drugs.
Yeah.
Totally possible he could have been having like a little silent battle that people didn't know about, and maybe he really was trying to get out of town. He left behind everything because he knew, he said, you know, I'm smart and people will follow me if I take my cards, if I take my keys, if I take all this stuff. But he left everything, like personal stuff, like, I don't know, family, like emblems, like stuff in that room that you would be like, if you're running away, you're going to want to take this, you know? He left it all. And yet we have his last known whereabouts being at a bus stop at the corner. And it was never clear to me if that was a campus bus or a public bus. Not clear in the reporting.
I would be really interested to see, like, if they ever did have it. I'm sure they do, like, what the transit system looked like on campus versus, like, the actual transit system, like, of LA, and like if things connect certain places. Like I would just be, because my gut is still that there's that man and he somehow showed up on campus. And
totally. And I would say like him going missing on the UCLA campus and to or just in Los Angeles it's so sad, but it was to his detriment, because it's such a small drop of water in the ocean of disappearances and crimes that are taking place in Los Angeles at all times, that I'm sure in the beginning, maybe they did do their due diligence, but there's a clear reason that his parents hired not one, but 2 private detectives, because keeping the LAPD or even campus police, I guess, on your case long-term, it's usually not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen, which is devastating, because I'm sure they could have looked even further into this, and they could have looked at more people, more suspects. And it certainly doesn't help that the witness statement of this mystery man came 7 months after the fact. Whoever reported that, happy you did. A little too late. Like, maybe if you saw that and you knew this kid went missing, maybe come forward, I don't know, 6 months prior. But anyway, Stu, that is all I have got on the mysterious and very eerie disappearance of Michael Negrete.
Baby, I hope you sleep tonight.
I gotta say, since I brought up that wind thing, it stopped since I brought it up.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good.
That was so damn weird. I swear to God, like I wasn't making that up. Like I kept thinking, I was like, did I leave the door open or something? But like a very deliberate like rush of wind over and over again. And you know what? Oh my God. It was happening right when we were talking about the theory of the sex trafficking.
You had just switched to it.
I don't like that.
That's our next intro song. Ooh, I like that.
What is what's Candy Burris's Housewives intro again?
Oh baby.
I keep singing it.
I may be small, but my empire keeps on growing.
I looked it up. I listened to it, and I gotta say, you did
so good.
Perfect justice.
That's actually also my tagline, because I'm 5'2". I may be small.
Oh, you know what sucks? Since I'm watching Housewives and I got Peacock without ads, I don't see the intro. I don't watch the intro anymore to the new thing of Beverly Hills, so I don't know what their new taglines are. Do you?
I'm trying to think.
Sutton's next season is going to be Name 'em.
It's got to be like, if you got a problem, I'll name it, or something like. I'm sure
it's got to be. It's got to be like, people say that I get in with the wrong crowds. I say, Name 'em.
That's so good.
I'm a writer on Bravo. It's okay.
Oh my God. That's honestly, that was like one of my dreams when I was trying to decide like if I was going to become a corporate hack, which avenue I was going to go down. I was like, I'll just be a producer on Bravo. Done.
And you know, if they slipped you a contract any day now, you would drop everything. You would say, CreepTime the podcast, kiss my ass. I am so out. I am flying straight to Kyle Richards' home. You would be that. You'd be sleeping in a van outside of Kyle Richards' house with a steady cam.
I cannot. If you do that one more time.
I'm sorry. And I'm going to have to wrap it. Thank you so much for listening to this case. Thank you, everybody, to the Creepers for listening to this, following another unsolved disappearance. I know we cover a lot of them, but something about this one felt a little different, which is strange because we don't have a lot of information to go off of. That's what felt weird about it, but it feels like there's something juicy there.
Yeah, there really does. The magic juju thing. I'm like, damn, I feel like it's coming. I don't know when, but
I was going to text you because I think I saw something about a case we recently covered. Oh shoot, I don't know which one it was, but there's like new information that came out about a case we just covered. Oh damn. It might have been Joshua Maddox. Since right after we covered that case, and I didn't want to I didn't want to jinx it, so I didn't say anything about it or write anything online. But I was like, is that CreepTime magic? Mm-hmm. Oh, and with that,
maybe small.
Creepers, we're going to catch you on the next one. Thank you so much for sticking around. For now, we will say goodbye
and good luck, Creepers.
Bye, guys.
Bye.